Hi, I'm Jennifer, and today I'm going to show you how to dye yarn in the microwave. What you're going to need first is some yarn, and here I have some superwash wool. It's 100% wool, and it's kind of a cream color. You're going to need some food coloring, a pair of gloves. This is to keep the dye off your hands. It's not critical. Some distilled white vinegar. I have a spoon to measure some vinegar, although you don't really have to. This is just to stir the dye around. And I have a glass microwave safe Pyrex cup, and I have about 1 3/4 cup water in here. That's about, I think about 350 to 400 mLs of water. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add just a little bit of vinegar, about a tablespoon. I didn't plan this out ahead of time, so I think I'll have to put the camera down. Go like this. And I'm just going to measure out about a tablespoon of vinegar. Actually, I think I'll put a little bit more, about 1.5 tablespoons of vinegar in there. And kind of stir that a little bit. And then I'm going to add my yarn. I hope that this is big enough. Oh, it might not be. We will see. I might have to get a bigger cup because this is looking pretty full. I think it's okay. We'll see. Okay, so we're going to soak the yarn for about 1/2 hour, and that's to remove any air pockets or bubbles from the yarn, because I want the dye to absorb pretty evenly. If there's any pockets of air, then that's a section of the yarn where the dye won't absorb evenly, and that's really not the look that I want to go for. So I'll come back in about 1/2 hour and we'll try to microwave this. Okay, so the yarn's been resting for a while, and I'm going to actually try to mix up a little bit of dye. I actually am going to remove the yarn from the dye bath because I want to make sure I get the color I like before I commit. So I'm going to gently squeeze some water out of this soaked yarn. If you notice, I've put my gloves on because I don't want to dye my skin. I'm just going to set it to rest while I mix up a little bit. And I'm going to try to use some yellow and blue to make green. 6. Never done this before, so I'm going to try 6 drops of yellow and 2 drops of blue. And actually, yeah, that looks like a nice green color. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put my yarn back into that. Give it just a little stir, which is actually kind of hard to do because there's a lot in here. Okay, and if you see, the yarn's already taking on some of the green color, but it's not absorbed yet. So in order to get the dye to absorb into the yarn, I'm going to go ahead and put it into the microwave. Okay. In order to get your dye to set, you have to heat the water. So we're going to go over to the microwave. And what I'm going to start with is increments of about 2 minutes. So we're going to heat the yarn for about 2 minutes. And then we will let it cool and see how much dye is absorbed. I might have to add some more dye to the water. Since I haven't done this before, I don't know how much of that dye will be absorbed. If it's all absorbed and it's still too light, I'm going to add more coloring to the dye bath in order to get a more saturated color. So we'll check back here in a couple minutes. Okay, I actually ended up microwaving the yarn for about 3 minutes. It never came to a simmer. You don't want it to boil, but you do want it to like bubble just slightly. So I'm actually gonna remove it from the microwave. And the handle is really hot, so you should use a hot pad. And actually, it's kind of hard to tell. There, you can see. The dye is all absorbed. The water is completely clear. So this is pretty much the color it's going to be. And I actually think I want mine to be a little bit darker. So I think I'll let this cool, and I'm gonna add a little bit more dye to it and see if I can get it a little bit darker than what it is now. You can always reuse your dye bath. You don't have to do anything else to it. So I will end up reusing this same dye bath and just adding some more dye to it. So I'm gonna let this cool and come back in a little bit. Because I'm kind of an impatient person, I decided that I didn't want to let it cool. So I'm going to remove the yarn from the dye bath. And it's actually not extremely hot right now, so I don't really need to worry about burning myself. And I am going to, so you can see the water's clear. I'm going to add some more food coloring to the water, and we're going to do this again. So I'm going to do the same formula. 2 drops of blue and 6 drops of yellow. Give it a stir. And we're going to put the yarn back in. Oops. And I hope this is going to be the shade that I want this time. So it's still a little warm. I am going to wait until it cools, and then I will zap it. In the meantime, it can still try to soak up a little bit of that color. Okay, when I came back to check on the progress of my yarn, I was actually going to put it in the microwave a little bit more, but when I added the dye, the water was still hot, and it turns out that it actually absorbed the rest of the dye. So you can kind of see the water is clear. In fact, I'm going to take this over to the sink for the next step. The sink's wide at the bottom. You might be able to see a little bit better. The water is actually clear. So I'm going to rinse the yarn and put the camera down right here. You can kind of see. So I'm going to take just a squirt of soap, and I'm going to put that in here. The water is completely cooled, so I can touch the yarn. Actually, you can kind of see now the dye bath, it's completely clear. So I'm just going to rinse the yarn using the same temperature water that was already in the cup. You can reuse the dye bath if you want to. I hope you can hear me. The water running might be kind of loud. And I'm actually not seeing any color come off. So now I'm going to take just a little squirt of soap, regular dishwashing soap, and just rinse that in there. Water's getting kind of hot. And yeah, the water is totally coming off clear, so this is just great. I'm going to gently press some of the water out. And I'm going to try to find the center of this. Looking back, I should have tied my knots a bit tighter. Maybe not. There's a little bit of color variation where I tie the knot. It's actually a little bit paler right there. But I'm okay with that. That looks nice. Okay, there's the center. So Just gently squeeze some of the water out of this. And I'm gonna actually hang this outside to dry. I found a place in the shade. So we're gonna come over to my sliding glass door. Kind of have this a little bit ready. Ugh, I'm tangled in my tripod. Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of drape this over these clothespins. Don't really care about any dye that might come off on the ground. Although I don't think any will because it's pretty well rinsed. And I'm just gonna leave that outside to dry, and then I'll take a look and see how it looks. Okay, so it's been a couple hours and I think that the yarn is dry enough that I can assess it. So I'm going to just take it off here. Oops. Yeah. We'll lay it on the counter and take a look. It actually turned out, the lighting in here is not very good, but it turned out a really nice grass green. And something that you might want to know about is a couple of these places were tied a little bit too tight. So the dye didn't get through all the yarn, but that's okay because I kind of like how it looks. So that's how you dye yarn in the microwave. Thanks for watching.